called Osler-Weber telangiectasia syndrome. My father has this disease, and his mother before him had this disease. My father's brother and sister also have this disease. I've known since I was about 18 years old that I have this blood disease, also known as HHT. I am 36 years old now, and I am waiting now to go back up to Yale for another visit. My grandmother and my aunt were being treated up at Yale by a doctor named Dr. Robert E. White, one of the only doctors in the country that knows anything about this blood disease at all. I've known that I've had it since I said I was about 18 years old, with terrible nosebleeds and little red dots all over my whole entire body, which are the telangiectasias. I decided when I was about 32 years old, knowing that I have this disease, that I would like to go up and meet Dr. Robert E. White myself, get to know him, and be tested. I talked to my cousin Linda, who is my Aunt Ruth's daughter. That would be my father's sister. She also has the disease, and we wanted to be tested together. So I've talked to her for about a year, and one day, just right out of the blue, she called me up and said, "Bev, you've been asking me if I wanted to go up with you, so let's just do it. Let's, get our husbands together and let's take a trip up to Yale, get the test done, and find out if we have anything growing inside of us, which happens with this disease. Usually, if you have it, you will get it on the lung, and you can be operated on. They go in with little balloons and wires, and they put these balloons and wires around the mass that is growing in there, and it blocks it off, and it becomes dead tissue. And that's one of the only places that they knew about until very recently where you could get this disease. So off we went up to Yale and got the test done. We came home late that evening, and it was a couple days later. It was 3 days before Christmas, to be exact, and I was making cookies with my son, who was home on vacation from school for the Christmas holiday. My phone rang, and it was Dr. White, and he said to me, "Beverly, are you home alone?" And I said, "My son is here with me, and my husband is on his way home from work." And he startled me by the tone of his voice. He had said to me, "There is no good time to ever tell anyone this type of bad news, but by law, I only had so much time in which to call you and tell you that we believe you only have 3 months left to live." I can't tell you what went through my heart, my head. I just fell to the floor. I just started crying, and I said, "How do you know this? What happened? What did you find?" He said they found a mass the size of a golf ball embedded in my brain, and they found 3 other masses also in my brain, but the one was a ticking time bomb, and I could go at any time. Well, needless to say, I couldn't even think of anything. I didn't know what to do, what to say. I was just shocked. I was 32 years old at that time. And my husband had come home from work. Dr. White had given me his phone numbers to call him at his home. So when my husband came home, my parents were here, we could all call him that evening and talk this out, that I would need immediate brain surgery. And I would need 3 other surgeries prior to my brain surgery because it was so deep in my brain. They were very afraid to go in. It was very life-threatening to me. So we made an appointment with doctor for the next couple days to go up there and have this all drawn out before us. I went into the hospital, and of course I had to have these 3 other surgeries before my brain surgery. One of the surgeries, which of course being up at Yale, they know all about all the new techniques and everything that is being done for the government and in the country. There was this glue that they wanted to use to embolize the mass in my brain, which would be very much a good thing for my brain surgeon, so that when they did go into my head, this big mass would already have this glue around it, which would guide my brain surgeon's hands, and it would be a little bit of an easier task for him. My husband and I had to sign papers so that the government would release this glue to Yale. This glue wasn't even out on the market for anyone to get at this time. So Yale did get it. The government released it to Yale, and they used it in my brain. That was one of the 3 surgeries that I had to have done. It took away most of my speech at the time because this big mass was lying on where my speech was and the movement of the right-hand side of my body. The mass was on the left lobal part here, but very deep, which the left-hand side of the brain controls the right-hand side of the body, and vice versa. I was told that after my brain surgery, I wasn't going to be able to talk or walk, and we also had to sign papers that my husband and family weren't going to know me as the same person I was when I went into this brain surgery. I went in for the brain surgery. I had 50-50 chance of making it out, and I was in the recovery room, and the next day I woke up. Now my surgery was probably about 8 hours long, they told me. And the next day I woke up, and I just looked. My husband and family were in there with me, and I had said to my husband, I'm still here. I just could not believe that God was so good as to even let me still be here. And my nurse went running for my brain surgeon, Dr. Awad. He is the greatest man alive, and I'm sure my Aunt Louise can tell you a lot about him because I did tell her a lot about him. He's got everything after his name that he can possibly, have school-wise or anything like that. They ran and got him, and he came into my room, and they had asked me my name, where I was, did I know what I had just had happen to me, all kinds of questions, and I knew all the answers, and they just could not believe it. So they had asked me if I could get up to take a walk, and they went and got orderlies and got on either side of me. They disconnected me from some of the machinery I was hooked up to, and I could put one foot in front of the other. Not very well, but I could do it. And they were just amazed, totally amazed, because I was going to be in that hospital for a couple weeks after that, and I was coming home here to a place called Allied Services, which is for someone like myself who has had surgery and they can't, function for themselves. And it was just a miracle. You talk about having angels on your wings or guardian angels on your shoulders. I can tell you that I did. After that, I had come home after a couple of weeks, and I was doing okay, but I had a little, a lot of sore spots on my head. Here is a picture of my brain surgery right after I had come home from the hospital. I had 36 staples coming up my head, which I was home for about a week, and I had a nurse come to my home to take the staples out of my head. And I was home for a little while, and what happened was I started feeling some very bad pains, and I couldn't breathe. So my husband rushed me to the hospital, and I got into the hospital, and they found a blood clot that had left my legs and went up through my heart and landed in my lungs. Once again, they could not believe that I survived that, because once a clot goes through your heart, you have a heart attack and you are here no more. So I had another operation here in Pennsylvania, and I had a vena cava filter put into one of my arteries. It looks like a little badminton birdie, and it is steel. So hopefully if any of that ever happens to me again, it will catch the clot and not go through my heart and into my lung. Then after that, I had to go back up to Yale. They had to check the other masses in my brain. When they did that, they found another mass. At any given time, I could get another mass anywhere, either in the lung, the brain, or in the stomach. I am the first person in the country to have had this typical blood disease so large in the brain, and I guess I'm a study case for them, which didn't sit too good with me at first, but now that I'm alive and I can talk about it, it's okay by me now. They found the other mass, which was a little bit down lower from the one I had just removed, that it had gotten that much larger, and now, once again, my life was threatened. They had, instead of doing opening my head up again, they had a new way of performing a brain surgery called bloodless brain surgery through what was called a Gamma knife. And they asked me if I would like to again be a guinea pig, because I was now the first person in the country to have had the Gamma knife radiation treatment done to the other mass in my brain. That consisted of a surgery which was just about as bad as the first surgery I went through, because I had to be awake for this, and I had all kinds of holes drilled in my head, and it was just awful. And after that surgery, I came home, to make a long story short, and I had started to take seizures. So I'm now on a lot of seizure medication because I was over radiated, but it did the trick. After a while, with this radiation constantly working in my brain, it did get rid of the mass. Now I still to this day have 3 masses left in the back of my brain, which we are waiting to go back up to Yale sometime in the beginning of March, and I'm going to have those looked at to see if I need any of those to be operated on, which eventually they probably will have to come out of my head, but how, when, where, and why, we don't know as of today. My son does have it. I have one child. My son is 11 years old. He was tested for it, and I am sorry to have to say that the 50-50 chance that I have of giving it to any of my children, which I only have one, and that's how it's going to remain, he does have it. And that is a very sad thing for me, knowing that I gave it to him. He is also tested all of the time, because I have it so bad in the brain that they just wanted to make sure that he didn't have it in the brain. I know I only have 10 minutes, but I could go on for 4 hours longer with this. And I just wanted to say that I thank God every day for my life and my family. And this is a very, very rare blood disease that I have. And most of my family does have it in the lung, and I am the first person to have it in the brain. And it's just very, very hard for me to even talk. I wish I could be in front of you personally and talk about this with you, but of course I cannot. This was the best way to do it. And if anyone has any questions, I would be so glad to answer anything that anyone could ever think of. And I thank you for your time. God bless.